Good morning, everyone. So my name is Bharadwaj Kummamuru. I'm from the World Bioenergy Association. Unfortunately, I'm not able to join you physically in Delhi for this Future Fuels Summit. And I'm very thankful to Dr. Anil for giving me the opportunity to join you virtually and share perspectives from the World Bioenergy Association on the development of biofuels around the world. So I'll share my presentation now, and I hope this is all works fine. The idea for my short input in this panel discussion is to share some data on the production and consumption of biofuels around the world, but also specifically at the EU level, and to share update on some policy developments at the EU, followed by the role of biofuels in a future net zero scenario, and also lastly address a key issue on the topic of feedstock. Firstly, the World Bioenergy Association, we are an industry association based in Stockholm. We started off in 2008. I joined the association in 2013, so I've been part of this advocacy group for more than 9 years. Our mission is to promote the sustainable development of bioenergy around the world. So we do that through international advocacy, for example, through our engagements with the COP Climate Change Conference, but also provide a platform for engagement for our members. Our members come from a wide variety of stakeholders, from pellet producers, utilities, research organizations, briquette manufacturers, liquid biofuel producers, and so on. And we cover all type of bioenergy sector. So this gives a snapshot of where all our members come from, both associations, national, regional, but also companies. Now, firstly, why do we need biofuels? What's so important? And this gives a very good snapshot. This is from one of our partner organizations called REN21. And as you can see that the penetration of renewables varies across different end-use sectors. And for example, thermal or heating needs covers about 50% of our energy needs. Globally, transport 30%, power 17%. Both the penetration of renewables in the power sector has grown significantly. So it was about 27%. This, I think, was 2019. It was about 35%. So we have a lot of renewables in the power sector, whereas there's been little progress in both thermal and woefully low in the transport sector, where we only have about 3 to 4% of renewable energy, and most of it comes from biofuels. So it's very important. Two sort of key takeaways. One, that bioenergy has a major impact and potential in all end-use sectors, especially in heating and transport, and that we need all solutions to decarbonize the transport sector. A couple of slides on some development production data for biofuels. Currently, last year, the production was about 170 billion liters or 3 million barrels per day. It increased about 6% since COVID. COVID was a big issue at that when because of number one, the low oil prices, which is hard to compete for biofuels, but at the same time, nobody was using transport. Everybody was at home under lockdown, the various lockdowns. So that meant that the production dropped significantly, but it has recovered, and we have production at the same level as pre-COVID, or more than what we had pre-COVID. Both bioethanol and FAME biodiesel have increased moderately, whereas there's a significant increase in HVO production, or hydrogenated vegetable oil. Bioethanol accounts for about 65% of the productions, is the largest biofuel, followed by biodiesel at about 28%. Bioethanol, mainly that's sugarcane ethanol in Brazil, and corn in the US, but now, of course, India is a major player. And then biodiesel is mainly canola in EU and palm in Southeast Asia, mainly Indonesia. If you look at bioethanol, the US and Brazil account for about 80% of all global production of bioethanol. India, because of the significant mandates for E10, and now I think it's E20 for 2025, is emerging as a major player in the bioethanol space. Crop-based, when we talk of the EU situation, the crop-based biofuels are the dominant biofuels right now in the transport, which accounts for about 54%. It's both grain-based ethanol and rapeseed-based biodiesel. But recent legislations, which include, if some of you may be aware of, a cap on crop-based biofuels, accounting towards renewable energy targets, plans on phasing out of internal combustion engines and lowering gasoline demand overall, means that there's sort of a peak for bioethanol production at the EU level, whereas we see the decrease in production will be taken up by significant growth in both the Americas, whether it's the US and Brazil, but also in Asia. Talk of biodiesel is slightly more distributed. We've got about 37% production in Asia, 31% in Europe. 2022, the production was about 47 billion liters. Europe has always been a major producer of biodiesel, but growth has sort of stagnated in the recent years because of various policy issues. And as you can see, the blue worm, the bottom, which is Asia, catching up to Europe in terms of production of biodiesel. That's mainly driven by mandates in Malaysia, Thailand, but also Indonesia. Malaysia with B20, Thailand, it was initially B10. I think it was reduced to B7 or B5. Whereas Indonesia, which had B30s at the start of the year, and rolled out B35 from August onwards. One slide on the policy development. So the new Renewable Energy Directive, the RED II, sort of set the framework for renewable energy use in the EU. There's an overall target of 32% by 2030, which was increased to, I think, 45%, 42.5%, I think. And there is specific targets for transport of 14%, which is an increase from about 10% in 2020. There's a minimum share for advanced biofuels depending on which part of the annex they come from. Annex 9 part A is usually like cellulosic ethanol and so on. These have a specific targets, and they're usually double counted. Whereas, as I've mentioned, there's a cap on accounting crop-based biofuels towards renewable energy targets. There's reinforced sustainability criteria, and there's also a phase out of high low-risk biofuels, which is mainly palm-based biofuel by 2030. And one thing to point out is that even though we had there's a target of 10% renewable energy in the transport mix, there's only, I think, about 7 countries out of the 27 countries in the EU which met that target in 2020. But if you remove double counting, which is usually done for advanced biofuel feedstock, then it's only Sweden and Finland which have actually achieved the transport targets for 2020 in their transport mix. So there's still a lot of progress that needs to be done at the EU level. Bioethanol production in EU reached about 6 billion liters. There's about 58 refineries that produce bioethanol. The reduction in production, but also slight increase in demand last year post-COVID meant that the imports reached an all-time high of 1 billion liters. And the critical component of bioethanol production, which is almost always forgotten, are the co-products, whether it's DDGS and corn oil for bioethanol. But also what we see is the significant opportunities in the bioethanol space for carbon dioxide capture and use. As we talk of carbon dioxide removal technologies, CCUS is emerging to be a significant opportunity for the bioethanol industry in the EU. The prominent feedstock are corn and sugar beets and wheat, but there's an anticipation of a drop in production in this year. Biodiesel, world's largest biodiesel producer, produced about 16 billion liters last year. Imports also reached an all-time high again. There's a total combined capacity of about 26 billion liters, so there's a lot of opportunity. The capacity is only about 60-65% the capacity used, but there's a significant opportunity to increase production. And prominent feedstock or rapeseed, 40%, but also advanced biofuels advanced feedstocks such as UCO animal fats, according together for about 35%. 3 countries account for the significant consumption, 50% of the consumption, and that's France, Germany, and Sweden. A couple more slides. So that sort of is the situation now, and we start looking at the situation in the future. And one key sort of metric is the net zero emission pathways, net zero scenarios, which many organizations have come up on a global level. There's IEA, but also IRENA has a pathway. And just looking at some of these pathways, we see there's a lot of positive news for bioenergy, including biofuels. And that's mainly because of its opportunity to deliver emission reduction across a wide range of areas. Haven't touched upon, maybe that will be touched a bit later, is the opportunity for biofuels to decarbonize aviation, maritime, and heavy duty transport, replacing gas with methane, replacing coal, as we see in India right now with solid biomass fuels, whether it's a co-firing or in dedicated facilities, but also clean cooking solutions using densified biomass. So there's a whole lineup of opportunities for utilizing more bioenergy as we move towards a net zero future by 2050. And according to some of the scenarios, that bioenergy will end up becoming the second largest energy source after solar. So there's a whole reason for optimism for the sector. So when we, but at the same time, as we think of how we are going to achieve these targets, how we can increase deployment of the technologies, one of the key questions is, of course, feedstock, especially in the biofuel space. There have been a couple of studies and a couple of reports which said that as we move towards, in the short term, there might be sort of a feedstock crunch. There might be some issues, especially in the biodiesel space. So we've tried to gather sort of key recommendations on how we can mobilize feedstock for increased biofuel deployment. And one is, of course, firstly, get more out of less. And that means increasing yields, reducing waste along the supply chains, but also increasing and improving the residue collection. Specifically looking at yields, what we've done is we've done a theoretical analysis where we looked at different yields of different crops around the world. And one estimation that we came across was that if all the regions meet the yields of those countries which have the highest yields, then with the same amount of land, you can produce at least 30% more feedstock for biofuels, but also for food and other purposes. So more out of less. Increasing production using marginal and degraded lands, of course, and improvement of technologies for accessing and processing novel feedstock. So there's a whole lineup of companies, some major oil companies which are investing in novel types of feedstock, depending on the weather conditions, depending on the location, and that's important to as well. Lowering the life cycle emissions along the entire value chain so that we use less biofuels to meet the targets, especially in those countries where they have GHG mandates. And finally, it's very critical and important to invest in communication efforts to dispel myths surrounding the use of biofuels, especially on, say, issues such as food versus fuel. So there are some things that we can be done to make sure that we have more biofuels to meet the targets for the future, whether it's blending targets or for net zero targets. So with that, I'll end my short intervention. So I'll be more than happy. Unfortunately, I can't meet all of you, but I'll be more than happy to connect online and probably meet in some other location. As you see, we have a whole lineup of events, virtual, but also physical. Please get in touch, whether it's via email or by phone or through our website, and we're more than happy to discuss further on the development of biofuels. And so once again, thank Dr. Anil for the opportunity to share our perspectives. And I wish you all a good conference in the rest couple of days. So thank you.